This is your Illini Drive.
Joey Gelman, host, Chicago, Illinois.
Dan Collins, co-host, Chicago, Illinois.
Kevin McCarthy, social media man, Geneva, Illinois.
Jeff Omer, producer, Naperville, Illinois. Welcome into Illini Drive, your home on the way home for Illini Sports every Monday at 6. Joey going alongside Jeff Omer, Dan Collins, and Kevin McCarthy. Unfortunately, no UPTV again video-wise this week, but we will be still streamed on their channel at 9 p.m. on Wednesday, so they'll still have the audio of our show playing up there just like they did last week. Unfortunately, couldn't get video this week. Interact with the show at Illini Drive, at DI_sports. Like us on Facebook. Text lines up, 217-337-1071 if you have an opinion, or you can always tweet at us like I mentioned. Show breakdown for today. We're going to talk a little Super Bowl to start out. Hopefully everyone stuffed their faces with bunches of wings and pizza. Going from there, 6:30, Alex Roux and Eli Schwadron coming in to talk Illini basketball and what went wrong against Iowa and if there's any saving of the season going forward. 6:45, Kevin Fishbain of ChicagoFootball.com will be on. He's going to talk Super Bowl thoughts with us, maybe a little Bears, see if they have a shot next year, which is probably unlikely, but we'll get his opinion on that at 6:45. So, everyone's Super Bowl, did it live up to the expectations? First, your parties or your food, and then we can get into the game.
Oh, it's fantastic. Cheese dip, and I kept on making myself like the homemade Lunchables, like the ones with the crackers.
Was
and
it
of course,
homemade? Oh, like your
well, because they're not in
okay.
plastic, so you buy the salami and the cheese and the crackers separate. Big win, huge win, the homemade Lunchables.
Homemade Lunchables? Dude, that's called a charcuterie plate. Meat and cheese. If you want to be fancy, that's what it's called. And it is nothing like a Lunchable. Anyway, after I drop a nice word like that, here I am turning to what we ate, which was Domino's Pizza, because the wait at Papa John's was 3 hours. 3 hours.
Now, not only that, the majority of us gents are from up north, a couple hours up north, where if you're staying at least close to the Chicagoland area, you get something that's either Chicago pizza or tastes very close to Chicago pizza. Down here, you get none of that.
Yeah,
That's
let me tell you,
one of the flaws.
Domino's, not so good when you compare it to all the big dogs up in Chicago. But we also got some wings from Wingin' Out. And, little buffalo sauce. Perfect for Super Bowl Sunday.
The managing editor here missed the whole Super Bowl last year because he waited 3 hours for his Wingin' Out. He said it was an absolute zoo.
I wouldn't
last
even
Super
have
Bowl.
stayed.
Who wants wings that bad?
He said it was an absolute zoo. People were screaming. He said he ended up getting his wings like 3 hours later. He came back with like 2 minutes remaining in the game, and I think he went.
That's all he needed to see in that game, though.
Well, that's true.
Roughly before halftime, I think he left. Like they were just waiting forever for wings.
That's weird. I wouldn't. That's not worth it to me.
No,
Not even close.
I think I would have been more than okay with missing yesterday's game.
Well, that too.
It might have been somebody who ordered like $50, $60 worth of like a bunch of Super Bowl food, and they're like, "Well, if I leave now, I walk out the door on $60. So I'm a."
Well, how do they not have it ready?
I don't know. That's why it was a zoo.
That's weird. But I will say, because you mentioned Papa John's, I think we all missed the greatest prop bet of all is will Peyton Manning kiss Papa John before kissing his family at the end of that game? Because that was bad. We were like, that's Papa John. They go, no, it's not. And we round it again. It's like, that's Papa John. That was the first hug and kiss he got.
Yeah. How cool were his sound bites? I'm going to drink some beer. I need some beer. No, at first it was Budweiser.
And everyone said they didn't pay him for it.
Then he said he's going to kiss his wife. Yeah, first he's going to drink some Budweiser and kiss his wife before he talks retirement plans.
Yeah, some economists did an analysis of how much that airtime would have been worth, like an equivalent in terms of advertising time, and those two name drops were worth $3.2 million. So a bunch of Budweiser executives were just sitting there smiling at their TVs at home. So quite the shout out there from the sheriff.
Yeah, absolutely. And at least this time, the game was somewhat watchable. It wasn't just last year's game was watchable too. I mean, if you like to see just somebody clobber another team, but
that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
We got lights going on. What the heck's going on here? Lights are going off in the studio.
Yeah, it's pretty dark in here, and the flash went off, and we're having some fun.
We're going green here, apparently, at the Illini Media Company.
Or the building is exploding.
Yeah, one of the two.
Maybe they're just taking pictures of us.
I hope so, because usually that goes off when we're off air, but it looks like everything's on here.
Maybe we're not getting enough oxygen. I was talking about the Super Bowl from 2 years ago.
Oh, God.
Anyways.
Everything's going to their heads. But looking at the game, I think at least for me, it was surprising. I mean, we all, I think, had the Panthers in this one, and no matter, we all hoped for a good game, but
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be like that. At least it was close, but it was still, Panthers had nothing yesterday.
We should have known by now, probably, that the Denver defense was as good as advertised, and that pass rush was just that good. But I kept falling back on the fact that, okay, Tom Brady's not a mobile quarterback, and when Cam Newton goes against that pass rush, he'll be able to break away from it, get out of the pocket, escape, and extend plays and extend drives. And I kept falling back to that. I was like, I know that this pass rush is suffocating and they'll cause problems, but I know Cam can escape the pressure because he is so mobile. And he couldn't. He just couldn't get away. And while they had a number of drives get going, they couldn't finish anything off. Cam Newton actually played far better than Peyton did, but like I said, he couldn't finish off any drives, and you got to give it up one more time. I mean, the pass rush was just unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely surprised because everybody in this room had Carolina. And like Kevin said, Newton had to extend plays or, make some plays, with his feet or whatnot. But when that time came, it was either like a Von Miller or DeMar or Ware who were just on top of him already. And if you look at the numbers, just statistically speaking, if you're breaking down Manning's performance, he arguably had the worst performance of a Super Bowl winning quarterback within the past, maybe 5-10 years even. I mean, if you go back all the way to even when he made his first Super Bowl appearance against the Bears, only Rex Grossman probably had a worse game than him because he had 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions. But I mean, Peyton was 13 for 23 yesterday, so a little bit over 50%. But if the word Manning is not on the back of his jersey, you put him in the Trent Dilfer category.
It was average, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was below average because I saw a stat that said it was the third worst quarterback passer rating in a Super Bowl ever, and there's been 50 Super Bowls, times that by 2 quarterbacks a game, 100. So he was the third worst out of 100. That's pretty bad. And they also broke a record for most 3-and-outs. The Broncos did in a Super Bowl, most 3-and-outs. So, I mean, their offense was essentially inept for most of the game, or almost all of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, Peyton's highlight reel play was the 2-point conversion that was largely irrelevant.
Right.
I mean, he did nothing.
I mean, you have to be shocked if he comes back and plays football next
no
year.
way.
How do you not just go on top?
He's storybook ending.
He's done.
Right.
That game showed he's done.
Right. And he got lucky to win that one because and it's 2 Super Bowls, like you said, with the Bears and this one where he hasn't been.
He was pretty okay in the first Super Bowl.
But he wasn't a huge game-changing factor in either of those. And then yesterday, it showed you why he's at the tail end of his career. I mean, good for him. He gets the win there. But it was just kind of a lackluster game, and the offense is just blah. I mean, I hate to use it as an adjective, but there was just not really much fun to take away from that Bronco offense. And then it goes back to, you harp and harp and harp on offenses all season, and when push comes to shove in this one, it was 2 defenses that won it.
And you have to give credit to that Denver front office because 2 years ago, they go into that Super Bowl with one of the best offenses of all time and get absolutely walloped, and the whole, the old adage of defense wins championships came back to bite them in that game, and their executives got together and decided, all right, we need to go out and get a defense. They go out and sign a ridiculous free agent set defense of TJ Ward for a bunch of millions of dollars, to Marcus Ware, and I'm missing one more. They also drafted Von Miller.
Yeah.
But they just stacked up that defense, and then with a first-year defensive coordinator in Wade Phillips, we saw what that can do for a team. And so while this wasn't the most glamorous Super Bowl winning team, the old adage came true that defenses do win championships, and you have to give credit to the front office for putting that defense on the field because they have just been unbelievable all season long, and we're so good in the postseason.
Well, to that point, we're one Marshawn Lynch rushing touchdown away from the past 5 teams to win a Super Bowl being the team with the better defense. For instance, you just run down the list here. Giants, better defense over the Patriots. Ravens, Seahawks, and then it was Patriots last year. Like I said, you were one Marshawn Lynch run away.
Who now is retired.
Yeah, exactly. And then Denver last year. So obviously defense winning. I know I did, but did you guys ever have a sense in that game last night that Carolina was just maybe too young or inexperienced for the moment?
I don't know, though. Both teams made such silly mistakes. Like, it was so hard to believe that these are the two best teams because you think about it. It was so sloppy. A bunch of turnovers, I think 4 or 5 turnovers total, and then you had 12 penalties between the two teams, a bunch in the first half. You had players dropping passes all over the field, a ton of missed blocks, obviously. There was such a good edge rush for both teams. The Bears should take note of that. It's important to have an edge rush, believe it or not. And, I mean, overall, it was just such a sloppy football game. I was commenting to my friends. I was like, imagine if you had to explain the game of football to someone who had never seen this game based only on yesterday's action. That would have been a struggle. It would have been so hard. It's like, no, I promise you're supposed to hold on to the football. It's really important to hold on to it. You're supposed to catch the ball when it's thrown to you. I mean, there was just such silly mistakes made, and I just thought both teams looked nervous or something because they just didn't look crisp ever.
Because we just saw so much ease from this Carolina team all year. I mean, they breezed through the regular season, and Cam Newton showed why he's an elite quarterback. MVPs announced before the Super Bowl. But they just didn't have it yesterday. Maybe that's youth. Maybe that's just nerves. Or they just were figured out by a much better defense that maybe Cam hadn't seen as much pressure than he did yesterday. And it's a matter of not being used to that environment, and it showed. I mean, once they started getting to Cam and he was flustered, there was no coming out of that for the Panthers. And even though the score was so close for so long, you just had leaps and bounds that if one team scored, the other one wasn't going to get there.
Well, they also have one of those very high-powered offenses that could steamroll during the regular season. But once you get to the playoffs, or once you even get to the Super Bowl and you face the best defense in the league, and then you're not winning a game 35-7, or you're not up 2-3 scores at halftime, when you're down and when you're having a hard time generating offense and the tables are turned, what do you do then? Your whole game plan, everything you're used to just routing teams. That's not the case now.
The other thing that you can say, though, also is if you take 2 plays away from that game, it looks completely different.
Stop it, Tim Beckman.
No, I know, but seriously, you think about it. Cam fumbles in the first quarter, and that becomes a touchdown. They just got to sit on it in the end zone. And then in the fourth quarter, there's 5 minutes left. You're down by 6, and you're thinking, okay, maybe this will be a storybook ending to a storybook season for Cam Newton. He can drive down this field, score a touchdown, win the game by 1, and he fumbles again. And I'll say this. He cracked under pressure, and I will also say, I don't know if anyone wants to get into this argument or not, but he should have dove on the flipping football with the fumble in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
I noticed it right away. I'm like, what's he doing? And I don't know if he would have got it or not, but what the heck is he thinking? How does he not have that killer instinct of the ball is on the flipping ground, there's 5 minutes left in the Super Bowl, and we're down by 6? I mean, even if that's not the scenario, you're in the Super Bowl. Dive on the ball. There's no next game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The only thing I could have thought of at that time was maybe he was trying to sell that it was a forward pass. To where, oh, no, don't even go, just sell. He wanted to try to sell that maybe it was an incomplete pass, which is goofy because you review that and you see it's a fumble. So that's the only thing, though, that came to my mind was maybe that he was trying to sell that it was a forward pass.
It goes back to that.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
No.
When the ball is on the ground, you pick it up. Let's all remember Week 17, Bears versus Packers for the NFL 3 years ago. The ball's on the ground, nobody picks it up, and some Packer goes and runs it for a touchdown. When the ball is on the ground and you haven't heard a whistle, you dive on it. That's like football 101. I mean, you teach the kids when they're in Pee-wee football. There's a ball on the ground, go and jump on it.
Well, like you said, that was literally him cracking. Like, you've seen him crack and fold under the pressure to where he forgot how to play the game. You learn at the Pee-wee level, fall on the ground, but he just cracked. He didn't know what to do. You could tell he had like that mental confusion on what he was supposed to do there.
And you feel bad because he really did have such an unbelievable season. He is far and away, bar none, the MVP of this league. 35 touchdowns, 100 quarterback rating on the season, just led this team easily, as Joey said. I mean, they just steamrolled everybody in the regular season. They breezed right through it, and then he has to go out the way that he did, and then everything with the way he handled the media at the end of the game. It was a bad ending to a great season.
We'll get to more of that after this quick break. Again, Alex Roux and Eli Schwadron coming in 6:30 to talk basketball. We're going to continue with Super Bowl talk here. 6:40, Kevin Fishbain is going to call in from ChicagoFootball.com. He's the Bears beat writer there, but also has a bunch of knowledge on the NFL, so we'll get his take and his reaction from Super Bowl 50. You're listening to Illini Drive on Champaign's Alternative, WPGU 107.1.
This is Andrea Darlis from WGN Radio in Chicago, and you're listening to Illini Drive on WPGU. Go Illini!
Come alive again.
Welcome back into Illini Drive, your home on the way home for Illini Sports every Monday at 6. Joey Gelman, Jeff Omer, Dan Collins, Kevin McCarthy here. Tweet at us at Illini Drive at DI_sports. Phone number for the text line, 217-337-1071 is the number there. We're talking Super Bowl till 6:30. Alex Roux, Eli Schwadron on at 6:30 to talk a little men's basketball. And then Kevin Fishbain at around 6:45 from ChicagoFootball.com talking Super Bowl. So going on here, with Super Bowl talk, Kevin mentioned before we go into break the presser at the end of the Super Bowl where Cam Newton kind of stormed off at around the end of it and kind of set a bad image for himself there. And I guess I'm just curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And at least for me, it's the idea of he seemed to be like Mr. Do-Right all year. Like he had a great image where, one, he was, really good on the field.
Giving balls to kids every game.
Right. The best was the meme with the crying Michael Jordan receiving the ball from him at the end of the game. But that's besides the point. But he had that image of like could do no wrong both on the field and off the field. And yesterday, I'm not going to say shown his true colors. I'm not going to accuse a guy of that. It's a tough situation. But it's still handled correctly, and no one should ever kind of storm off like that after their loss. I mean, you are emotional. It's raw emotion. I would never want to lose the Super Bowl as a player. I mean, you don't know when you're ever going to get back.
Yeah.
But in that heat of the moment, I think that was just a little. Well, it's not the right thing. It's a little blip on what was kind of a perfect year for him.
Yeah, it was immature. It was childish. I mean, he looked like a baby up there. Like when little toddlers are pouting, or maybe you still pout today, Dan. I don't know.
On occasion.
Yeah, on occasion. Yeah, and he was pouting up there. It's like, what are you doing, man? It's so immature, so ridiculous. It's your job to handle the media, and you need to do your job, and whether you win or lose, you need to go up there, be an honorable person, and spend a few minutes, just answer some honest questions, and don't be such a jerk. I mean, he just gave himself such a bad PR moment there by not just being honest with the media and answering a few questions. I mean, seriously, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, to be honest, I was a little shocked when they cut to Cam Newton and you seen him in the hoodie and, he wasn't dressed all fab and to the nines like he usually does. So I was a little shocked. The only thing is, though, Joey used the right phrase, heat of the moment. And, sometimes we're prisoners of that moment, and you want to kind of judge Newton's character just based off of that one event yesterday. I mean, it was one press conference compared to a whole list of things, like you said, he's done right. It's more or less just maybe a little smear on what nonetheless is a pretty good resume if you're just talking, personality and character-wise. But nonetheless, it's a little shocking when you're at the biggest stage, and trust me, if the Panthers would have won, he would have been dabbing and at the mic, and he would have been having a good time, which is fine, absolutely acceptable. But then if you lose, you have to be able to man up to it.
You got beat. I mean, you got beat by the better team, at least on that day, and so you got to own it. At least go up there and say, my respects to Peyton Manning. He's one of the best ever. That defense was fantastic. I mean, people are trying to do their jobs, and I'm not just saying this because we all are trying to get into the media, but people are trying to do their jobs, and you got to help them do their job. And, whether, like you mentioned, win or lose, you need to go up there, and it is your responsibility by your contract to talk to the media. And also just for a little self-respect, and I mean, your image is just horrible there. I mean, I'm sure the Panthers got all over him. The PR was so bad. Be a good loser. Go up there and just pay your respects to the great season that the Broncos had and the fantastic game plan that they came out there with.
Yeah, like Ron Rivera, he had a pretty good interview after the game, but Cam Newton not the same. And the one thing that I will give him, and this is not definitely, I'm not trying to give him an excuse, but Cam Newton, perhaps out of anybody else that was involved in the Super Bowl, he must have had to deal with the worst and just idiotic questions leading up to the game, and he was able to take them because he was in a good mood. They hadn't lost yet. They're the favorite at that, so he's able to kind of take that in, maybe laugh it off. Okay, now when you lose the game and you have to deal with, some idiotic questions, you're probably not in the mood anymore. So, I mean, that's probably when he caved, is when he lost, is in that horrible mood. Now he realizes, here I go yet again. I have to, answer, well, there might be some good ones, a couple idiotic ones, but, like I said, nonetheless, still no excuse for him.
And I'm just afraid, because, I mean, this is a blip on the radar, but I'm just afraid people are going to spin this in a bad way and make it a bigger issue than it is. And whether that means just his character or, as many people do in this country, playing the race card in that scenario. And just I hope it doesn't do that, but it wasn't the best decision, at least on his part, because it was so perfect for so long, and you lose the biggest game, but you gotta carry yourself a little better.
He kind of gets that LeBron James treatment, and when I talk about their character, especially because I'm going to reference the decision, I'm talking apples and oranges here, but in the sense when LeBron claimed himself to be the king, and then he had the decision and everything. If he had one press conference that was, a little shady, people were jumping all over him. Same thing with Noonan. He's putting himself in the limelight. He's dabbing. So he gets that treatment to where, okay, if you want to be this stud and claim yourself the best in the business, and you want to put yourself in the limelight, when things get a little not necessarily work out in your favor, then you kind of have to man up to it and be, good at that podium, or you're really going to get the sledgehammer on you.
Yeah, I almost think it's fair if the media does kill him a little bit, because they loved on him so much when he's walked down in these planes with all these swagging clothes on. He's wearing thousands of dollars, and he's dabbing all over the TV, and he's doing all this stuff. He is that huge personality, and the media has been so good to him all season long. And look, I get it. The dude forgot how to lose. They were 15-1 in the regular season. They win a couple of playoff games, so they won 17 out of 18 games this year. He forgot how to lose. He doesn't know what it's like. The dude's a competitor, and I love that about him, and I love him as a player. And I don't want to say I lost any amount of respect for him yesterday, because I didn't, because I truly think he's a great guy. He's fantastic for the NFL, and more than anything, he's just such an entertaining player to watch, whether he's on the field or off of it. But it bothers me so much when players are such sore losers and they're not doing their job responsibility, which is just to answer a few questions for the media.
Yeah, I mean, I'll retweet that comment, and also,
wow, our older listeners are like, what is he even talking about?
I'll sign off on all those words. Ditto for the older listeners.
Ditto.
And another thing that bothered me a little bit, and I don't necessarily like when they force athletes to be role models.
True.
But Cam Newton embraces it. He knows he's a role model. So if you're going to be up there, then like I said, at least be a class act, because you are such a good role model to a lot of kids. So be a class act. But there's one thing I will say. Even if people try to spin this, like you were saying, Joey, I have a pretty big feeling Carolina, maybe they won't get to the Super Bowl again in the next few years. Maybe they will. But I have a big chance that, especially if Newton stays healthy, they'll be playing in some big games for the next few seasons. So he'll have another chance to redeem himself. If they lose in a title game or the Super Bowl again next year, whatever it may be, if they lose in a big game again, he'll be up on that podium, then see how he reacts. If he does much better, maybe, this will fade away. If he acts goofy again, then he's really starting to hurt himself. But he'll have another chance.
Absolutely. Is my mic going to work? Come back, Mike. Nope.
No, me and Kevin will just talk all day.
Please do, because there we go. We're back.
Oh, darn it.
Ha-ha.
Kevin and I were about to have some fun banter, which I'm kind of shocked. We have a few minutes left. How do we almost talk for a half hour? You don't reference any Super Bowl commercials or anything like that.
True.
I thought overall it was just kind of a waste of 4 hours. Like the halftime show didn't kill me. It was okay.
It's been that way the past few seasons.
Yeah, it was just okay. The commercials were just okay.
Yeah.
We may need to change our intro to Puppy Monkey Baby, though.
That was really
caught
awkward.
me off guard. I'm like, what is going on here? And then the song starts going, and then everyone's just...
Also, it was
worked.
just me, or were Jim Nance and Phil Simms especially bad yesterday?
Yeah.
Phil Simms was, and then also the prop bet around will Mike Carey mess up a challenge?
He did.
The
He
first
did.
one he had. Yeah, he was on the air for 10 minutes and he screwed up.
I went right to Twitter after that to read
good.
it, and it was just to see, because everyone knew that and had that bet, and then
I was going to
sure
tweet
enough,
you boys when my phone was on 1%. Also, you mentioned it when we came in. That whole Michael Jordan meme thing, it's just killing the meme game. It wasn't at first it was killing it in a good way, but now it's a bad way.
It's gone too far.
But it's
There was an Illinois one yesterday too. They had
it's a lack of creativity. It's like every meme now is just the Jordan sad face. There's nothing else that's different. It's all just you just slap his face on something.
Where is the diversity in memes
Where's the
today?
Come on.
It was terrible.
You're losing it, America. You're losing it. The internet's a wonderful thing. If anyone does something stupid, it's on Twitter within 5 seconds, and I love it. But it can't always be the Michael Jordan crying face.
That's a good question, really quick. What was worse yesterday, the ads or the Michael Jordan or the memes? I think the ads.
Yeah, there was actually one funny meme of the Michael Jordan crying face. All the Carolina players dabbing when they won the NFC Championship, but everybody's face was the Michael Jordan crying one.
Oh, God. Let's take a break here. We want to get Alex Roux and Eli Schwadron on at 6:30, so they're going to come on. We're going to shift gears, talk Illini men's basketball. They lost last time out on Sunday to Iowa. So we'll be back with that. And then 6:45, Kevin Fishbain jumping on with us to talk Super Bowl. You're listening to Illini Drive on Champaign's Alternative WPGU 107.1.
Hey guys, this is Erin Andrews, and you're listening to WPGU 107.1.
Just to avoid, I should say, giving up an open shot, and see Jock gets the steal. Got an easy finish. And Peter Jock with 15, and a timeout taken by Illinois. Over the lands, on the bounce. Back out it goes to Jordan. His shot blocked by Utah. Another blocked three-point shot by Jared Utah.
Welcome back into Illini Drive, your home on the way home for Illini Sports every Monday at 6. Joey Gelman, Dan Collins, Jeff Omer, went in the wrong order, Kevin McCarthy. They are all here. At Illini Drive's at Twitter, at DI_sports. 217-337-1071 is the text line. We shift gears here. Illini basketball is the topic. Alex Roux and Eli Schwadron, our two daily Illini men's basketball reporters, are here to break down what happened on Sunday against Iowa and going forward. Guys, how are you?
Great. Good to be here.
Good, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for jumping on. So I guess starting off, we can talk about Illinois for hours, but on the Iowa side of things, were you with what you saw being a top 10 team with Jared Uthoff and Jock?
Yeah, I think Iowa's definitely a legit top 10 team. I mean, they're just so deep. They keep coming at you with guys that can score, that can just move the ball efficiently on offense, and I think they're legit just because of their depth, really. I mean, what do you think, Eli?
Yeah, I hadn't watched much of Iowa prior to yesterday's game, and like Alex said, I came off extremely impressed. I knew about Uthoff, but I didn't know too much about guys like Peter Jock, like you mentioned, game high 23 points. Adam Woodbury, 7-1, 10 points, 14 rebounds. They're just a well-oiled machine out there, especially compared to this lackluster Illinois team. So, yep.
Sticking with that game, when's DJ Williams going to start getting some more minutes?
I think the biggest issue with DJ Williams has been the consistency, and if that light bulb's going to turn on for him. He mentioned in the post-game press conference yesterday that it's more about preparation for him, and he's kind of learning how to prepare for these games in Big Ten season as a freshman. So I think once he can show that consistently he can get out there and be active on the glass and go to the rim aggressively like he did yesterday, I think he'll see some more time, because right now he doesn't really have a set position. Like, is he a three? Is he kind of a stretch guard? Can he play the four? Can he handle the ball at point a little bit? We just don't know yet, and he hasn't been able to show that consistently.
Yeah, he certainly hasn't been consistent, but I will say that he hasn't gotten the minutes as some of these other younger guys, so it was cool to see him. He still didn't even play that much. He got 15 minutes yesterday, but he showed some flashes, like Alex said. He's really athletic, and I think once he starts getting some more clock, he's going to get that confidence. And he is sort of that like stretch four player, which you tend to see with a lot of young guys in the NBA, certainly. That's like the typical basketball player in 2016 that you really want. So exciting, a bright spot yesterday, and hopefully he continues to build off that.
So we've hit that time of the year where maybe Illinois fans... There we go. My mic's working. There we go.
There you are.
Maybe Illinois fans have been waiting for. You got Northwestern and Rutgers back-to-back. And it's kind of sad because whether we're talking about the football team or the basketball team...
I hope you haven't been waiting for that all year.
No,
that's
it's
a
like,
sad
well,
state of mind.
But my point is, we consider those winnable games. So Northwestern and Rutgers back-to-back, those are winnable games. Is this the time Illinois fans are waiting for? And how bad can it get if Illinois maybe splits one of two or goes 0 for 2 in that span?
Right. I think we've pretty much seen as bad as it's going to get this year in certain games, like in Indiana. Almost losing to Rutgers, it was pretty ugly there for a while. I just think at this point, what I'm looking for personally is this team going to roll over and give up at the end of the season like they did last year under John Gross? Are they going to play hard for him, or are they going to lay down and quit? And I don't think they've done that so far. There were some stretches, like I said, against Indiana. It seemed like they had no interest in playing defense or rebounding or working hard at times. But I think as a whole, they've been able to keep it together and kind of fight through these injuries. And, yeah, the results haven't been there. It's going to be hard to string together a lot of wins when you can't rebound. Your big men are sitting on the bench in street clothes. So far, I at least have been able to give them credit for not rolling over and giving up in such a difficult season.
Yeah, I agree with Alex completely. And, at this point, we kind of talked about it last week. Just, at least for me, I'd like to see some more experimenting from Coach Gross, throwing some different lineups in there, maybe throw some young guys in there if we've got a lead over NU or Rutgers, which obviously isn't a guarantee. But if we do build some type of lead in the second half, maybe just throw 5 youngsters in there and give them some big-time experience. Just looking forward to the next year. So Malcolm Hill, try to go for 40. Or just spice it up. Try to make it exciting for the fans. Had a cool triple overtime game against Rutgers. That was fun to watch at least. So just looking for some bright spots in a down year.
Really poor performance yesterday from Kendrick Nunn. I know that Gross said in the post-game presser that it was just an off night for him. Have you guys seen anything from him lately that can point to some of the poor performances, or has it just been a couple of bad nights?
One thing about Kendrick Nunn, you'll notice now in his third year at Illinois, he's a very streaky player. He relies on a streaky shot, and when he gets going, he's very hard to stop. But then he'll have a couple games here and there where it's just not clicking for him, and he'll have a hard time stringing together shots, and he'll still take a lot of shots. So in a game like yesterday, it just kind of looks bad out there for him. He goes 2 for 13, only 6 points. And I've said before, when Kendrick Nunn and Malcolm Hill aren't both playing at a very elite level, it's going to be very hard for this Illinois team to win without very many options behind him to score the basketball. So Kendrick Nunn, if he'll probably bounce back, I don't think this is going to be a prolonged slump. You got to keep in mind that his hip has been bothering him as well after that contusion against Wisconsin. So I think he'll bounce back, and I think him and Malcolm Hill will continue to have a spectacular season like they have been.
Yeah, I think Nunn just kind of lost his rhythm coming off that hip contusion thing. I've been a huge proponent of Nunn since he came to campus. I think he's an awesome player, and I don't really care too much about the 2 for 13 thing because when your teammates are so crappy, especially a team like Iowa, number 5 team in the country, is going to do everything they can to stop your 2 best players in Nunn and Hill. So he had Peter Jock and Utah hounding him the whole game. Tough night. I think he's a good player. I think he'll find his rhythm before the season ends.
We're talking with Eli Schwadron and Alex Roux of the Daily Illini, both men's basketball beat reporters here on Illini Drive. At Illini Drive is the Twitter. 217-337-1071 is the text line to interact with us there. And I guess, going back to what you guys have been talking about, kind of this mixing up of the lineup, and Eli, I know we talked about it on Sunday, that stretch where DJ Williams went for most of his 8 points and was really getting in a groove, and then there was a timeout, and the substitution chosen there was to take Williams out but still keep Khalid Lewis at point guard. And we were kind of talking about the idea of, again, because with this team, point guard production has been low. Again, on Sunday, 2 points across the board. And so we were saying, why not keep a Jalen Coleman-Lands out there? And even though Kendrick Nunn was not having his best day, put him out there and keep Williams out there and Malcolm Hill and have one of those guys maybe run the point. And is that kind of a better option for this team? And Gross said, well, we like the guys we have, and we're going to have to stick with it. But when push comes to shove, a couple games in a row here where you have zero production from your point guard, you got to change something, don't you?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Gross said even as late as yesterday after the game that he's going to ride with Tate and Lewis. At least he wants them to do what he knows they can do, which is hopefully manage the game, not turn the ball over, and look to set up their teammates to score. But it's just their point guard play hasn't been cutting it lately. And I agree with some of the calls out there to see what Malcolm Hill can do running the point, or
he's played every position already.
Right, exactly, and get maybe DJ Williams some time out there. At this point, and you don't want to lose to Northwestern, you don't want to lose to Rutgers, but it can't hurt to get a few different looks in, at least for short stretches in the game, and maybe could build some future development down the road for those guys. Lewis won't be around past next year. Tate's going to be gone, and Tijon Lucas will need someone to back him up. So we need ball handlers
when he
going
gets
forward.
Healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a nice sigh.
Man, Khalid Lewis, and I'm so tired of talking about these point guards this point, man. Like Roux mentioned, Gross is just gonna roll with his guys, and that's fine. But it's just so frustrating. Like you said, like put Hill at point, or like try JCL at point. Like, they can't score. Plain and simple, they can't score. Huh?
It's 4-on-5 out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
4-on-5 out there.
You put yourself at a disadvantage every time you put Jalen Tate and Khalid Lewis at the point. I'm sorry, like, I'm sure they're definitely good ball handlers, and Khalid Lewis had a cool, like, took it to the basket, kicked it out, like, but he almost got caught in the air, but it worked out. So he has some like cool passes sometimes, but they're just not great like Big Ten point guards. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Like we mentioned, sometimes in terms of stubbornness, John Gross is almost like a Tom Thibodeau in a sense where he's so stubborn. But Roux, you've said a few times that this might be the worst Illini basketball season in recent memory. Now, you look at that, and if you're somebody who steps back, even as a fan, you can maybe use not necessarily the excuse, but the reason that, where they're just hindered or injuries. How can we, go up against these big guys when, Laurent Black's out, or, we got Thorne, how could somebody run the point when we don't have that experience and their Abrams is out? But is that really all there is to it, or are there these underlining factors as well that perhaps we're not looking at besides the injuries?
Yeah, I think the injury excuse is very legitimate. This team is just very, very hard for them to make an NCAA tournament without their two big guys and without Tracy Abrams running the point. I think it's totally legitimate. That being said, I think there are coaching adjustments and execution aspects of the players that could have been made to make this look a little prettier as we've gone along here. The Indiana blowout, Indiana's a great team, but I don't think it should ever look like your team's giving up on the floor like that. I just think that other teams, when shorthanded, still can work within their offensive systems and be disciplined defensively to make it look like a better basketball product out there than what we've seen at times from this Illini team. And I don't know if how much of that should be placed on Coach Gross, how much of that should be placed on the leaders of this team, Malcolm Hill, Kendrick Nunn, and the veterans on that team. I think it's probably a combination of the two factors. But I do think that Illini fans have a right to question why this team still doesn't look better than it should, even despite all these injuries.
Because that's why, and we got a few minutes left here talking about Alex Roux and Eli Schwadron. That's why it confuses me, because there's a part of me that goes, okay, injuries are a big excuse, and this team, can't obviously be as good as it should be because they're injured. But then there's other parts of me where you see the in-game play and the lack of adjustment and certain guys just kind of not quitting, but kind of lagging towards the end of games, and it's just then you wonder, is it a bigger thing? Like you said, Dan, is it something underlying here that we're not seeing, that maybe this just isn't the right fit for now? Because there was another show I was listening to over the weekend, and they had mentioned, no matter, let's say we don't agree with Gross's system, on paper, if you look at a roster of what this team could have been and was supposed to be, you look at, okay, you have Laurent Black in the fold, and then you would have a Mike Thorne come over, but then you would have had a Quentin Snyder, a Darius Paul, Jaquan Lyle could have been here. So there's a bunch of names there that you can crack it up to be, this could have maybe been a top 25 team on paper. Would it have turned out that way? Who knows? But there's that glimmer of hope that's like showing, okay, this could have been something with Gross, and maybe we'll never know, but is it worth it now? Is he that right guy to still bring that forward, even though stuff really hasn't gone his way? You don't know.
And you mentioned guys giving up, and especially against Indiana, Roux mentioned it. I mean, in the second half, they weren't there. And then Gross in the post-game presser last night or yesterday talked about how his team wasn't resilient, and they did sort of give up on that second half. But he also mentioned there's been games where they were resilient, like at Ohio State, and they came back and everything. But isn't it the coach's job to be motivating his players so they don't give up on him? I was just wondering your guys' thoughts on that. When he said that, what went through your mind? How are you knocking your guys' resiliency? That's your job to motivate them, right?
Yeah, it is, Kevin. It's definitely the coach's job, 100%. Agree with you completely on that. But when it comes down to it, there's just not enough talent on this team to compete with. I mean, we got to give these guys a little bit of credit. It was a 12-point game against the number 5 team in the country yesterday. Yes, it is Iowa. There's all this Iowa versus Illinois, like, oh, we want to be the better state. But they're still the number 5 team in the country. We're 11-13, and it was a 12-point game. So give the guys a little bit of credit. I don't necessarily agree with the whole giving up thing because they play hard. I see effort being shown out there, and there's just a lack of talent. When you don't have any post player, any point guard, as a Big Ten team, you're not going to succeed, plain and simple.
How much of that falls on Gross, though, not recruiting enough talent to be here to back up just in case of injury, just like it's happened this year?
Yeah, sure. We can dive right into the whole Gross discussion right now, if you want.
We have about a minute for it, so gotta be quick.
Okay.
I did want to.
Yeah, just wanted to plug Alex Roux' boy who works for Channel 3, who got the scoop on Mike Thorne, will be playing on Saturday against Northwestern.
At least Mike Thorne thinks so.
Yeah, according to Mike Thorne, he thinks so. That knowledge occurred at a local Popeyes establishment, so shout out to Popeyes for that one. And go get your chicken.
Yeah, we saw on Twitter that someone I follow actually ran into Mike Thorne at Popeyes, who claimed he'll play Saturday against Northwestern. So it's still up in the air. We'll see if Mike Thorne takes the floor for his second time this Big Ten season. But if Popeyes is accurate, then Mike Thorne should be out there.
That's the type of inside reporting we love at the Daily Illini. Thank you.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Alex, Eli, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Illinois takes on Northwestern this weekend, trying to get back to their winning ways, if we can even say that, for this season. Kevin Fishbain's up next. We're talking Super Bowl reaction on Illini Drive. This is Illini Drive on Champaign's Alternative WPGU 107.1.
This is Clark Kellogg of CBS Sports, and you are listening to the Illini Drive. Enjoy.
And the Panthers have a 3rd and 10. Here comes pressure, and they've gotten to him. The ball is out in the end zone, and it's recovered by Malik Jackson for the touchdown. It was Vaughn Miller with the strip sack, and Jackson with the recovery.
Welcome back into Illini Drive, your home on the way home for Illini Sports. Every Monday at 6. Our thanks to Alex Roux and Eli Schwadron coming on, talking Illini basketball. We started the show with Super Bowl talk, and we're going to finish it with some more football talk. He is Kevin Fishbain from ChicagoFootball.com, covers the Bears, and we wanted to get his take on Super Bowl Sunday. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for jumping on with us. So I guess for all of us here, and I'm guessing a lot of people you've talked to, we pegged the Panthers in this one easily, and that was not the case, obviously, yesterday. So from the onset of the game there, what kind of did you see develop that really spelled doom for the Panthers?
Yeah, well, for me personally, I don't think I underrated the Broncos' defense or anything. I think I probably overrated the Panthers' offense, which maybe a lot of people did after seeing what they did to Seattle and Arizona in back-to-back weeks. It's hard not to do that. But early on, you could see the Broncos were just going to go after Cam Newton with really reckless abandon. They weren't worried about his wide receivers because they have such good corners. They weren't worried about the run game because it's pretty one-dimensional with Jonathan Stewart when Cam's not running the ball and Stewart was hobbled. So when you are that aggressive up front and you can trust your corners like they can, it puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And when he didn't have guys open, he had guys dropping the ball, and he wasn't running a lot himself, that really set the tone for that defense to really make things happen. Because you guys, the Broncos' offense didn't really do anything. This was a win for their defense, and I think for me, I picked the Panthers to win. I picked the Broncos to cover. Because I just didn't expect the Panthers' offense to look this bad.
Kevin, you're talking about that phenomenal defense, but there were still spurts here and there where perhaps the Panthers could have put a few more points on the board. How much of that do you feel was maybe a little bit of a lack of an inexperience for the Panthers?
Yeah, it's very possible that came into play. I thought Mike Shula could have opened up the playbook a little bit more for them. I read the story today at the MQB. There was really only 2 plays that the Broncos hadn't seen on tape before. In the Super Bowl, you kind of got to throw the kitchen sink at your opponent. You got to give them everything you got. Now, there's something to be said about being confident in what got you to this point, and the Panthers were the second highest scoring team in the league. but it wasn't working. But you're right, though. They had opportunities. You had the missed field goal. You had a couple third down misses late. I think maybe the play of the game was the Ted Ginn drop that turned into an interception. T.J. Ward fumbles, and the Panthers couldn't recover. Broncos get the ball back. I thought that was the turning point in the game because the Panthers were there to make a big play, whether it was Ginn dropping the ball or the opportunity to pick up Ward's fumble, and they couldn't do it. So you're right that they had their chances, but I think that this was a defense that rattled Cam Newton, and it would really expose that the Panthers did not have enough around him to be a good team and to be a good offense if he's not having a good game.
And Kevin, what do you make of all the sloppy play by the Panthers? They committed 12 penalties for over 100 yards, turned the football over 4 times. You mentioned the drop pass. Obviously, all of the missed blocks. I mean, their offensive line was horrible. So what do you think was the reason for all of the sloppy play?
Yeah, the Broncos set the tone early with the way they were playing. They came out with just such an aggressive defense, and the Panthers, well, they should have been ready for it. They should have known what was coming, but I think even they were maybe caught off guard at how much of an impact it had on the way they played, and that is going to lead to breakdowns all over the place. You guys watch enough football to know that sometimes things happen that affect other phases of the game. You'll see a quarterback struggle, and then suddenly the defense isn't playing as well as it's supposed to, or vice versa. You'll see a defense give up big plays, and suddenly the offense can't move the ball. So it's complementary football. You got to get all 3 phases working together. And when one phase is struggling, and for the Carolina last night, it started with the offense, that can trickle to other parts of the game and certainly the discipline of the team.
We're talking with Kevin Fishbain here from ChicagoFootball.com, and I guess looking at this year, a lot of focus has been on just kind of a lot of penalties going against defenses, against, these high-powered offenses like Cam Newton would have run all year. And yesterday, at least to me, it seemed a lot like there were a couple of hard hits on Cam that weren't called, and there were a bunch of unsportsmanlike conducts or personal fouls, but there wasn't as much hard hits being called. And I'm just wondering, is that a effect of postseason play where they've kind of stepped off the gas as a referee a little bit and let them play, or is that kind of a weird scenario where all year these refs are entitled and told to knock out this tough play sometimes from the NFL, and then in the biggest game of the year, it's not called?
One thing that may be attributed to that is because it's the Super Bowl and there's 2 weeks, the officials have extra time to get to know these teams. And I don't know this for sure, guys, but I would imagine Clete Blakeman's crew was at a practice or 2 for both teams this week. And when you're at practices for these teams, you can get a bit of an idea of the style of play. So, and they had extra time to watch these teams on tape. So it's very possible some of the things that the Broncos did in the game, the referees weren't taken aback by it because it's like, well, that's how they play. I've had extra time to study. Because these officials aren't full-time, they don't get a whole lot of time in the regular season to really get to know how teams run their stuff, aside from maybe a couple days to watch some tape. So, this is just a hypothesis here that maybe the extra time the referees had getting to really get themselves acquainted with both teams allowed them to be more comfortable to, keep the flag in the pocket at times. But I think there were certainly a decent amount of 15-yard penalties thrown out there, that it wasn't too much of an outlier of a game.
And we spent some time on the show earlier talking about Cam Newton in the post-game presser. Obviously, he was pouty, and then he just sort of got up and left. So as a member of the media covering the NFL, I'm just kind of curious, what was your take on the way Cam handled the post-game press conference?
Yeah, it's funny. I've had so many different opinions and thoughts on it, and I've tweeted 0 of them because I don't want any blowback or anything.
That's safe.
Yeah, exactly. Jonathan Jones covers the Panthers for the Charlotte Observer, and he wrote a really interesting piece. He's someone who's covered Cam all season, and I think the point that he wanted to get across was Cam is different when he wins and when he loses, and that's not a bad thing. It's understandable in your personality. Most guys are like that. But when we complain about Belichick or Marshawn Lynch or Greg Popovich, those guys are the same no matter what happens. when Cam Newton spends all week talking and smiling, and when he is such an important role model for people in the Charlotte community and around the country for what he is accomplishing, to have a press conference like that, regardless of what's going on around him, I think he could have done better. I'm not going to. It didn't really surprise me, to be honest with you guys. I don't think it was an indictment on him as a human or as a professional. I think it's just that here was a guy with the most crushing loss of his NFL career, and he wasn't ready for what was going to come. It's a very awkward media setup there. You guys have probably been in these big media throngs. It's hard to ask really good questions in those throngs. It's a really uncomfortable, awkward setting, and you compound that with the most devastating loss of his football career. I get why he acted the way he did, but that doesn't make it right. And he's got to learn to lose in not the same manner he wins, of course, but he's got to be a bit different about it because there's an opportunity for fans to learn what he has to say, and he didn't allow for that opportunity. Now, as a sports writer, I don't have a lot of complaints because for me, I wouldn't have been really writing about Cam Newton, and I think that by doing what he did, he actually gave you a fair amount to write about because he showed you so much in his emotion, and as opposed to kind of saying fake stuff. A friend of mine, John Greenberg, who writes for The Athletic here in Chicago, wrote something about that today, and I think it's a great point because, too often we get guys saying fake stuff, and so at least he didn't do any of that, but he certainly could have been way better.
And Kevin, another question surrounding Cam Newton was how was he going to perform on the big stage? He goes 18 for 41, 265 yards. Did have that interception and that fumble that he didn't fall on. So how would you just assess his performance for the first time on that big stage?
Yeah, he had a bad game. He had a really bad game. I could also say the same thing about the quarterback on the other side of the field. I thought he had a really bad game, too.
Yeah.
The thing is that I think a lot of credit goes to Denver's defense and what Wade Phillips did, and I don't think the Panthers did really anything to help Cam Newton. Now, I think he should have run the ball a lot more. I think there should have been more design runs for him to move around a little bit to try to keep that pass rush at bay. The fumble is a very weird play. I think it was just kind of a slip on his part. I don't think it was anything like he was so upset or he just had given up at that point. I think he just screwed up in like that instance. He just didn't know what to do. So it was odd to see. But he on the big stage he did not have a good game. But I'll say this, guys. We just finished our draft preview magazine, and I was in charge of the Panthers draft needs. Number 1, offensive tackle. Number 2, wide receiver. That was very apparent throughout the season, but they masked it, and it was extremely apparent last night. He needs more help, and I think it also is a testament to how well he played throughout the season with these guys around him.
And you mentioned the draft, and as Bears fans, we're all wondering who they'll be looking at. So is there any names that you can give us, or at least positional needs? What do you think they'll address early? And even as the draft goes on, what does this team need to address? Obviously, they have a lot of issues.
Yeah, there's few positions that are not big needs for them. I think this is a very good draft to find a defensive lineman, and they need a defensive end, a guy to put down there with Eddie Goldman. There's a lot of really good defensive tackles in this draft that could play the 5 technique in a 3-4 defense. Inside linebacker is a huge need. They have 0 starting inside linebackers on the roster right now. Reggie Ragland from Alabama is a name you're going to hear a lot. I don't think Miles Jack from UCLA will be available at 11, but he's another guy to keep an eye on. Cornerback is a very good corner draft, and if they don't re-sign Tracy Porter, they're going to need at least 1 starter at the position, maybe 2. So watch a cornerback, and then I think offensive line is an interesting one. I don't know what they're going to do with Charles Leno, but they certainly need a 5th starter on the offensive line. So really nowhere they can go wrong with that 11th pick. It's a lot of options, but those are some of the positions that this draft is very good on the offensive line and the defensive line and at cornerback. So if the Bears get any of the guys from those positions at 11, I think it'd be a good player.
Well, Kevin, we really appreciate the time. Thank you for jumping on, and we look forward to catching up with you soon, whether that's Bears craziness that may happen in the next couple of weeks or closer to the draft. We really appreciate it.
All right, sounds good, guys. And I'll be at that Northwestern Illinois game next Saturday, and I can tell you I'm not looking forward to it.
Neither are we.
There's nothing to look forward to.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks. That's Kevin Fishbain from ChicagoFootball.com. Always a friend of the show, a good interview with Football Talk, and I guess is now going to be the unfortunate spectator of Illinois at Northwestern next
we're not
weekend.
the only ones.
Yeah.
I'm sorry he has to endure it as well.
Yeah. Good stuff as always. And it was funny because he kind of echoed the same thing we were saying about the whole Cam Newton, how he was acting with the media. And, you bounce back and forth with it, but I don't think none of us tweeted about it either. We all played it safe in that scenario.
So that's going to do it for us here on Illini Drive. We thank you for listening and interacting with us for the last hour. Again, UPTV will have the audio stream for you live on their channel. So that'll still play at 9 on Wednesday. And as always, you can catch all of our info and segments online at dailyillini.com. Those will be podcasted for you right after we are done here. Our thanks to Alex Roux and Eli Schwadron for jumping on Talking Men's Basketball. Thanks to Kevin Fishbain again, ChicagoFootball.com, for talking Super Bowl and Bears. We will be back with you next week, Monday from 6 to 7. As always, sportscasts are throughout the week from 6:30 to 7, getting you up to date on all the Illini news and national sports news of the day following WPGU's news. So a reminder that this is always your home on the way home for Illini sports and Champaign Alternative, WPGU 107.1.